What is up, God Gamers? Today we're going to be doing a meta report for week 2 of 13.14b. To do that, we're going to be looking at the data on meta TFT right here. This is Master Plus on the North American server, I think, just North American server. But also, I did watch the regionals for China over the weekend, and I watched the regionals for Southeast Asia. So I'll be talking a little bit about some of the comps that were successful there, because they're playing a lot more Azir than we're playing over here. And so that was pretty interesting to me. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but mainly going to be using the data here. And if you want to know more about Legends, I'll talk briefly about some Legends with some of these compositions. But I did have a video that I put up 2 days ago just on Legends, and I think that still holds up. It's funny that I have to say it still holds up because TFT is a game that just changes so much. But I do think that Legend video is still pretty accurate to what comps are successful right now and all that good stuff. And lastly, I just want to say, I am personally kind of I am struggling on the patch. I'm still having to get used to the level 7 changes because this feels like the very first patch of TFT, and like honestly since set 6 where you have to actually play the game. Like I'm being for real. Set 7 with dragons, you didn't have to play the game. Like dragons were just so crazy, and then set 8 was pretty garbage. So anyways, I do think this is the best patch, but I lost 400 LP in 1 day, guys. But that is not a fault of not knowing the meta. I just cannot figure out level 7 right now. It's going to just take me, I don't know, maybe 100 more games till I figure out how to get used to the XP changes, because I'm playing like I'm playing set 4 right now, and I'm struggling. But anyways, let's get into the comps. And up first, we see this is sorted by pick rate, not average placement rate. So we'll get into that a little bit. So as you can see, Aphelios is the most contested comp. Its pick rate is pretty high. Its average placement is not super great, but its top 4 rate is fine, and its win rate is not super great. Honestly, I think this is a comp that is way more contested than it needs to be, but this is a pretty strong comp if you have like a Rageblade opener, if you have like an Ionia, if you have a really strong opener and you can like a power curve into this, feels quite nice. You have to roll a lot on 7 to contest for your front line, because Aphelios' front line is very expensive, with Sejuani and Shin being pretty much the highlights of the front line. This build actually does have some flexible outs where you can play like things like Gwen as like a side carry and play like an Aatrox Juggernaut front line. Like there's actually some other stuff you could do that is not just like play Freljords every single game. I learned that from Gar Champ Pro. I watched his video on that. I learned that from him. You can play like Gwen with if you get a Gwen 2, that's like a solid front line. You can play like Gwen, Aatrox, 2-star Nasus, and a Senna backline. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on that variation, as well as if you could fit Heimerdinger in here to help you with your damage, it can be quite nice. For Deadeye, this version that we're seeing here on Meta TFT for Deadeye is the weakest version of this build, but it's also the easiest one to stabilize. So just keep in mind, if you want to just stabilize really easily, play the 4 Deadeye, but be looking for those flexible outs like playing Senna, playing Heimerdinger, playing Ryze if Ryze is really strong for that portal, and all that good stuff. Playing Gwen if you get a Gwen 2. Essentially, Aphelios needs a lot of frontline, and if you're not able to duo carry the Urgot, then he needs some help in some other departments, like a Heimerdinger with like triple Mechano helping him out with damage and that sort of thing. So keep that in mind. This is not a comp that you want to hard force, and if you want to play this comp, I think you should also be looking to play Zeri as well, looking to flex Zeri as long as Zeri has like Robotic Arm or Virulent, something like that, something that helps her carry in the game. Next up is Invoker Karma, and this was the strongest comp on 13.14a. But since the nerfs, this comp is kind of like a high roll comp now. This is definitely not something you want to force. This is something that you want to play if you have Invoker Heart, with some AP item starts, or like Invoker Emblem, or you have some of the other Invoker-based augments. This is really more of a high roll style augment. I do not think you hard force this with TF like the game is recommending. I don't think you hard force any comps. I think the only like maybe hard forceable comp is Noxus Darius. Like, and what I mean by that being hard forceable, like it's not hard forceable like other like bad patches are. Like the Darius build, like you could probably have a net positive LP gain by hard forcing the build, but you will lose very often because you'll be contested very often. So I really don't think you should hard force anything. But if you do want to hard force something and have a net positive LP gain, it's probably Noxus, and that's it. This is not that. This is not the comp to do that with. Really, just play this if you have a really strong opener for it. Maybe Invoker +1. Maybe you start the game with a Taric and Soraka, so you can kind of tempo into it with or like a 2-star Cassio, or you get the Invoker-based augments, and I think it can be very strong. Other than that, yeah, I would only play that in that circumstance. Okay, Sorcerer Lux. As you can see, the placement rate is super high on this, but you might be thinking, all right, I'm going to hard force Lux now. Don't do that. This comp is so strong, but you have to have Sorc +1. You need a Sorc heart, or you need a Sorc emblem, or if you get one of these sorcerer-based augments at the beginning of the game, you could just play it and then hope you get a spat drop later, or hope that you get a hope that you do get that emblem in your heart. So if you do get like a Sorc opener, you can look to play vertical Sorcs. Really, you just need to get 6 Sorcs online as early as possible. And if you get a Sorc heart, it feels very easy. And so there's a lot of things you can do with Sorc heart. Like you can, this is the standard build where you play Sona Jarvan. You put the Sorc heart on the Jarvan, or you put the Sorc heart on the Sona. If you can reroll for a Sona 3, she is extremely strong with Sorc heart, so that can feel quite nice. So this is what the in-game board looks like. You're just playing 6 Sorcs. It's pretty simple. You can play some void stuff in the mid game when you have Malzahar on your board, and that can feel quite nice. Yeah, so really, if you get Sorc heart, you just want to get 6 Sorcs in as quick as possible, and then get some items on Lux and just watch her go to work. And this comp feels quite nice. But if you end up playing this without Sorc heart, you could probably just eke out a top 4 just by having to play all 6, like having to play Ori on your board for a bit mid game, because the spike is still quite powerful, and you can probably eke out a top 4 and maybe bump down the 4 Sorcs after that. But really, this comp is really strong if you have a Sorc heart or Sorc emblem. That's what feels nice about it. All right, Freljord Akshan. You can see the placement rate is quite high. The pick rate is not super high, and the top 4 rate is pretty good. Now, you might be thinking, looking at this, all right, I'm going to hard force Akshan now. Akshan is an extremely contested unit, so only look to play Akshan when you get like the Runan opener with like a 2-star Jhin, or like a 2-star Samira, something like that, something that can really tempo you into this game, or you get the Akshan drop with Runan, something like that. It's still Runan's, guys, even after the nerf. They nerfed it because it was broken. A lot of people get that twisted whenever they see nerfs. Like, didn't they nerf this? So why are you playing it? Because it was broken, man. So your best bet is going to be Runan's plus hard AD item like Infinity Edge or Deathblade. It shows Collector on here because Collector is very strong. And then after that, after the IE or Deathblade, yeah, something like Collector, Giant Slayer. Hodge is a difficult slam because, like, Akshan doesn't really care that much about the healing. Like, it can be nice. Like, it can win you some fights in the early and mid game. But if you don't have something like Giant Slayer there, or another hard damage item, it can feel kind of tough once people start getting their actual front lines online. This is a comp that you roll for on level 6 to stabilize. Like, you just really need the board, the Freljord board. And then you can get out. This is just showing Azir on Azir duo carry, but like typically when you play this board, you're not really thinking about playing Azir. You're just focused on getting Freljord and a lot of frontline, and then maybe you can play Azir. Like I don't stress too much about the Azir Jarvan thingy. Really, the core of it is going to be the Freljord units plus a Scion. And then like Nasus is going to be better, even though Nasus doesn't give you any synergies other than Shrima. He's just a very powerful frontliner, so you want to play him over Cassio, which is not what we used to do, but Nasus is very good on this patch. So this is a comp that you kind of roll to stabilize on 6, and then you could slow roll on 7 for the Akshan 3 if you have the angle. Now, if you are in a position where you're contested, then you just go, then you look to play Azir, look to get some Azir, look to get some Nasus items, and then you kind of move out of Freljord and more into like 5 Shrima. But that's like a situation where you're kind of trying to make the best of a bad situation because you're contested for the Akshans. Now, again, you're looking at this rate and you're saying, do you force? But again, Akshan is such a contested carry in the mid game, and especially there's a lot of Deadeye players, a lot of people forcing Deadeyes, and they'll just keep Akshan on their board because they don't know about the tech to play like Senna and that sort of thing. So they're not playing that. All right, Strategist Azir. This is a comp that some people are still trying to hard force. As you can see, the win rate not looking great, top 4 rate not looking great, average placement not looking great. But I do think this comp can be quite strong, and a lot of people in China are really liking this board. A lot of people are playing this. They're playing this a lot with like Transfusion, getting a lot of frontline. They're also playing the 5 Shrima. Like they kind of flex between this and the 5 Shrima if we get good Lux items, that sort of thing. This comp can still be quite strong, but really you only play it if you're like one of 2 scenarios. You're either far ahead, or you're playing like Vlad and you have that big transfusion value, and then you're spiking really hard on stage 4 with the Lux, and like this comp feels quite strong on stage 4 if you can get it going. So playing things like Vlad if you want to like move into it, or if you're really far ahead, you can stabilize on this on stage 4. It's very strong on stage 4, and you can get a free top 4, but you will probably get outscaled by the capped Aphelios players, the capped Zeri players, and the people playing the Dragon King strat. So all right, here we have Challenger Yasuo, and this is another comp that's kind of similar to Strategist Azir and some of the Azir comps. You really only want to play this comp when you're kind of high rolling it, and you are and you're kind of far ahead because this comp is very easy to stabilize on stage 4. You're just playing the challenger units, and then you just stabilize on 4 or 6 challengers mid game and 3 Ionia, right, on stage 4, and then you push to level 8s, and then you add in a Gwen or a legendary unit, something like that. It's a very easy comp to play. And then you want to look for Yasuo items are going to be probably the spot. It seems kind of weird, right? Like, I don't know what happened to Kaisa, but she just does not carry like she used to, and Yasuo just feels a little bit better. So if you want to go the RFC tech with like damage items, but like RFC plus 1 damage item plus Edge of Night is usually going to be your best bet to go. But if you don't have that, doing a build like this, like kind of like a defensive setup, like Edge of Night, Titans, you can go a healing item, or you can go to flat damage item. Like a flat damage item actually carries really hard in the mid game. Like you have like IE or something like that, carries really hard. But I do think you can go this full defensive item setup. But again, this is a comp that I think that you should play when you're ahead and you're high rolling the comp. Like you have like a Callista drop early, it's like carrying you really hard, and then you look for this free stabilization mid game, because again, you will probably you'll get outscaled by the Dragon King players, and if the people playing Zeri and Aphelios actually fully kept their board, you will most likely be outscaled. Just keep that in mind. You've probably noticed a trend so far. I've been saying when you're high rolling the build, because that is really what a lot of this patch is kind of flexing, and not really necessarily flexing isn't necessarily the word. It's like being willing to play a bunch of different comps from from the positions that those comps are strong. That's why this patch is kind of hard. I'm personally struggling a lot with the patch. I lost 400 LP in one day. I gained 300 LP. I was like, all right. I was like closer to Challenger than I was to Master 0 LP. And now I'm Master 0 LP. Not because I don't understand the meta. I am having serious problems understanding the XP changes. I am playing like it's set 4, and I'm struggling. But it's not a product of not understanding the meta. And the meta really is, you just have to recognize your spot and what comp you should be playing from that spot. And that's like a trend I've been seeing with a lot of these comps, like Azir, like Yasuo. I do not think anything is really like you just hard force it every game. I think you got to be really open to playing a lot of different boards, which is pretty difficult, especially when you're not really understanding the mid game tempo like I am. I'm having so much trouble with mid game tempo. All right, now it pays to learn. Now there are a bunch of different versions of this comp. I don't know why it shows this as like Ionia and Heimerdinger carry, because the most common carry right now is actually to play Ahri. So this is if you're playing the Dragon King strat. So what the Dragon King strat is, this is how it usually plays out. Now, like there are some more scenarios than what I'm going to lay out, but I'm just going to be generalize here a little bit here. But when you're playing Dragon King, usually it's you take the gold or prismatic on 2-1, which is level up. And then I always forget what the name is of the gold one, but it's the one where if you lose, you gain 3 XP. If you win, you gain 2 XP. You take one of those two, and then you typically take a combat augment on 3-2. This isn't always true. Again, I'm generalizing. But you typically take the econ augment on 2-1. You take you take a combat augment on 3-2, and then on 4-2, you take It Pays to Learn, which gives you XP and gold. And then you just go fast 9, and then you roll for the legendary board. And typically, you will carry Ahri and Belveth, and you just want a lot of frontline. You don't have to play full legendaries. It's a little bit too expensive. And I don't know why this board shows Heimerdinger as the carry. I mean, Heimerdinger can carry. But typically, you're looking for Ahri, and you're looking for items like Blue Buff, Jeweled Gauntlet, Guard Breaker, those sort of things. And then if you're looking for Belveth items, you're looking for like RFC, Edge of Night, +1 is usually your best bet. Yeah, if you get an Ionia emblem, that's cool, because it's really easy to run Ionia, because you just play Shin, Ahri, and then Ionia emblem here. That can be quite nice. But yeah, this strat is pretty simple. You just try to get the 9. Now, if you guys do want to play Dragon King in other spots, you don't always have to go to 9. You can turn on your brain, and you can just get a really fast level 8 and roll for a more normal comp, and then push 9. That's another way to play it. That's fine as well. Ionia Yasuo, same idea as like Challenger Yasuo. You just look to stabilize mid game on Ionia, and then you pretty much look to play it's the same idea as the other one. You guys know how to play this comp. I feel I don't need to explain that one. All right, Noxus Darius. Now, this is if you get a Noxus opener, and you're able to win streak pretty good, or you get like a Noxus opener and you have like some swords and gloves. Like that's gonna be a good indicator to play this comp. But again, this comp can be very contested. It says the pick rate is quite low, but in my experience, there's like even if I have the opener, some idiot will be forcing it. That happens a lot. But this comp is very stable on 2 stars. Typically, what you do when you play this comp is you're going to be taking a lot of combat augments, the Noxian-based augments, or just any type of combat augments are going to be nice for you. I don't necessarily know why it recommends Vlad, because I would not think transfusion is super good because you already have so much health. But just combat augments are really strong in this build. You really need to make sure, I don't know why it recommends Hand of Justice. You really need to make sure to get crit on the Darius and Infinity Edge. Titans BT is usually pretty standard. Titans is not necessary, but it's going to be IE BT +1 always, unless you have the free crit from your augments, that sort of thing. But anyways, you look to roll for this comp on level 6. You don't necessarily have to 2-star the comp, but you do want to have some 2-stars because you do want to win on stage 3, so you can get your Noxian stacks, because you need to like be strong stage 3 and then decently strong at stage 4, because what if you don't hit your Darius 3? And if you don't hit your Darius 3, you can get a decent placement just off of performing quite well on stage 3 and stage 4. So yeah, we want to roll for just 6 Noxus, and then we go level 7 and we add Warwick. And then we can switch out Warwick for a 2-star Nasus or a 1-star Aatrox is what we're going to switch it out. Don't worry about 3-starring anything but Darius and Katarina. If you have the angle to 3-star Kled just because you're rolling a lot and you're thinning out the pool, that's fine. That's cool. Do that. That works out, but it's not going to carry you. And then you just swap out Swain or Cassiopeia for Scion once you hit Scion. And yeah, your in-game board, the legendaries you'll play is Scion and Aatrox. And you stay level 7 until you have Darius 3. Usually, unless you're just so ahead on tempo, then you can go level 8 and roll for your Darius there and look for your legendaries. Yeah, typically you don't push past 7 when you play this comp. Sork Vel'Koz, this is when you have a Sork +1 and you play vertical Sorks, and you just put the Sork emblem on Sona. I think this comp is better than the average placement suggests, but I think the average placement is bad because I think some players are trying to force this. But again, you only play this from a position of you have a Sork heart and like you roll it down on 7 and then you hit the Vel'Koz 3. But you need to duo carry Lux or duo carry Sona. It feels quite nice with the duo carry Lux. I actually first placed with this comp yesterday because I had a Sork heart, and then I had that one where you gain 85 gold but you can't level past 7. That was crazy. I hit a Lux 3. I hit a Lux 3 on like 4-2, dude. It was crazy. But anyways, that can be quite nice. Zon Zeri. Now, Zeri is quite strong on this patch. You don't necessarily have to play Piltover. This is what I'm saying. You can look to flex around Zeri and Aphelios. Can be good with Master Yi because then you can get your Rage Blade stack super fast. And also Master Yi's augments work on your T-Hex, so that's quite nice. But other than that, like you really just look to play this if you have... You look to play this if the Zon is Robotic Arm or Virulent. Now, this is showing a lot of Zons playing here. This is kind of like if you get the Zon +1, you can get 6 Zon active. If you get 6 Zon active, 6 Zon is crazy. But you don't worry about doing that. Like, just play like Freljord frontline. The standard frontline you'd want to play with the Aphelios, play the same thing. And if you have Robotic Arm or Virulent, I think are the 2 best ones. I could be wrong about that. I'm not a huge Zeri player. But I do think those are probably the best ones. And then you can look to play Zeri. Like, this is just if you're looking to play Aphelios, but you hit Zeri. Zeri can be quite strong in the right circumstance. Now, of course, if you get the Piltover opener, then we're playing Piltover, baby. But just know that you can play Zeri with... You can play Zeri with like a more standard frontline, like it's showing right here. This was the Piltover version. This is like the more standard frontline. So just know that you can do that, and you can just play 2 Zon with Robotic Arm and that sort of thing. But if you have Zon +1 or Zon +2, then look to play 6 Zon because it is a huge spike. Kale, guys, don't play Kale. Void Kaisa. So this is if you get a Void Heart. Void is very stable on stage 2 and stage 3. And then the 6 Rift Herald is quite, it's like semi-stable on stage 4. So it's like really easy to top 4 with this comp if you get the Void opener with a Void +1. It can be quite nice. And then you just push levels and get to 8. You just like stabilize really hard early game. So you can tempo to level 8. And then once you get your Bel'Veth in, you get Baron. You're good to go. Free top 4, baby. And sometimes you can even first place with the comp. Gunnar Tristana. Again, the 1-cost rerolls are really struggling. Only play this if you have like golden ticket and you're high rolling the items, that sort of thing. I really wouldn't play that in any other circumstance. Double Trouble. The average placement rate is not super great, but I've heard a lot of people just say this comp is free low. So this is if you get like AP or tank item openers, and then you get Double Trouble drop, then you just hard force into, you just play a bunch of Talias, a bunch of Sets, a bunch of Swains, a bunch of Teemos. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You just slow roll on 6, and then you really want to have a pretty decent comp on stage 4. That's just 2 stars. You don't have to have 3 stars, but you need to have all your 3 stars active by the time you get to stage 5. And this comp seems pretty consistent when you get the Double Trouble drop. Can be quite nice. We already talked about Noxus Darius and Katarina pretty much. Like we already talked about that. And then yeah, We'll talk about like maybe one more. Shadow Isles, Gwen, Callista. Now this is a high roll comp. This is like you get a Callista drop in the early game, and then you get like not Zon plus 2. Like you get Shadow Isles plus 2. If you can get 6 Shadow Isles in and a Senna drop, like this comp is really good. But this is like really a high roll comp, and you're duo carrying Gwen and Callista, and you put items like this. You know, these are fine. Like Rageblade, Shiv, Giant Slayer. Giant Slayer is great on Callista. Rageblade's great on Callista, especially if you're not going to be expanding into more challengers, especially if you're only able to fit in 2 challengers. Now this is a 4 challenger variation here, but like sometimes you can just run 2 challengers if you want to like dip more into like Gwen's synergies. Like if you hit like Aatrox and like a Nasus 2 or something like that, can be quite nice. Slayer Zed. Slayer Zed has fallen off quite a bit, but if you high roll this comp, you just get like an IE drop and a Zed pair early on. Like you could just play this comp and it can be quite nice because most of the comps in the current meta are front to back. Even though Zed got giga nerfed in the right spot, it can feel quite nice, but do not hard force this comp. As you can see, the win rate is still pretty decent, and that's because again, these front to back, and if like you get an IE drop with like Vampiric Blades and like I have a Zed pair, like you can play the comp and the Zed can pop off. Bruiser Rek'Sai. Bruiser Rek'Sai can be quite good, especially if you're getting a lot. If you have like a Bruiser opener, you can like Bruisers can be quite good in the early game. Like Bruiser with Void has pretty good tempo on stage 2. You tempo into the comp, you hit the Rek'Sai, you go for BT Titans. That's stock standard. That's what you play on Rek'Sai, and then you slow roll on level 6, level 7. For your Rek'Sai 3, and you play like the 4 Bruiser front line. If you can get 6 Bruiser in, like you hit the Scion, you get a Bruiser plus 1, that can feel really, really, really nice. So you just want to play as many Bruisers as you can, and then side carry something like a Kai'Sa on your back line. You know, because your front line is buying so much time, you want to have a carry in the back line that can just do consistent damage. So something like Kai'Sa or even like Heimerdinger or something like that can be quite nice. Ravenous Hunter, Warwick. This is again just if you get the Warwick augment drop and you. This if you get the Warwick item drop and then you have like a bunch of cloaks, you know, and a bow, that can be a good indicator to play Warwick. Or if you have a bow, like a bow or a sword drop and 1 cloak, that can be a really good indicator to take it. It's not very hard to get additional cloaks, but getting like a sword and a bow can be a little bit tricky to get in the early game. It's a little bit easier once the game goes on. But yeah, you just take this and then you slow roll on level 6. You want to have 4 Juggernaut, 4 Challengers, what you want your in-game board to be. And then typically you just toss in 1 Zon to have the Zon onto Warwick. Once you can do that, emblems are really good in this board, like Challenger plus 1, Juggernaut plus 1 are very strong because it makes it where you can get the 4/4 board and for free on level 6, and then even get your Zon in there sometimes already on level 6, and then you push 7, and then you just there's your board. All right, Riftwalk Cassian. This is the same idea as you're playing Warwick. If you get this drop, you have a lot of gloves. It can be quite nice. You just go Jeweled Gauntlet plus healing, plus 1 is typically what you go. Some people just go more damage there. Some people go Titans, you know, that sort of thing. It can be quite nice. And then you just play 4 Bastion plus a Soraka in your backline. You're good to go. You just want to play a lot of Bastions and Soraka. There you go. It's pretty simple. Slow roll on 6. Shurima Azir, again, this comp is not performing super well in North America, but they're really liking this comp in China. So this is when you get a Shurima emblem and you just play the vertical Shurimas and you do a carry Akshan 2. If you get an Akshan 3, it's quite nice. And then play an Azir. In China, they're playing a lot of double Rageblade plus 1. And it's been performing quite well for them. So just keep that in mind. Transfusion is quite good on this comp. I know it doesn't show it here, but Transfusion is quite good because Shurimas scale with HP. So a lot of people will play Vlad and they'll look to play this comp, especially on the Chinese server. And this is pretty simple. You just vertical into Shurimas. You put the Shurima emblem on something like Jarvan or something like Urgot. Or a legendary unit, and then you look for attack speed items for Azir, and you guys know the Akshan items. You know, it's a Runans plus hard damage plus 1, and you're good to go. Freljord Echo, not really seeing a lot of people play this. Juggernaut Garen, I first placed one time with this comp, and then I tried it twice since then, and I don't know what's happening with this comp because I don't know. Sometimes like I feel really strong. It must be matchup dependent or something like that. Freljord Akshan, this is more the standard Akshan reroll. We already talked a little bit about this. Yeah, a lot of these comps not performing really well down here. Yeah, Slayer Gwen, this is like more of a legendary style comp. This is very hard comp to hit. But yeah, look, a lot of these 1-cost rerolls are not working very well. I know a lot of people are excited to play Cho Bidem. I've been trying to make Cho Bidem work, and I'm struggling. I've been watching Soju try to make it work. He's been struggling. So yeah, Cho Bidem it's not his time. The rule of thumb, if Mortdog says a comp is good, then it must be bad. It's just how it kind of works usually. Sorry, Mort. Mort plays this comp a lot. But anyways, yeah. Don't play the 1-cost rerolls. 1-cost rerolls suck. Now, you might think this Noxus reroll might be good because you're like, oh man, they buffed Samira, they buffed this. But Samira is bugged. Samira, if if her unit that she's casting on is moving, she will just miss. Like, if they fix this, I actually think Noxus Streamer reroll could be quite good, and I'm really excited to play it once they fix her. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it. That's the meta report. Much longer video than I thought I'd be filming today, but I just wanted to go through all of the comps on the meta TFT, because again, there are so many comps that you can play. Now this meta is like flex. Like, you need to be willing to play a lot of different comps, but really a lot of this meta is like, if you're high rolling a comp, you just go into that direction. Is how I think you should play most of the comps here. But anyways, that's pretty much it for me. Appreciate you all. I love you all, and I love TFT.